Fun Ideas Productions presents the Fun Ideas Podcast.
This is the Slow Poisoner. I come to you from the future with these words of warning.
It's a hot horror planet. 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 Living in science fiction. Past the point of no returning. We got high on gasoline. And we blew the scene.
Hi, this is Mark Arnold, and welcome to Fun Ideas Podcast number 87. This episode is sponsored by the fine folks at Lee's Comics. Attention comic book fans, Lee's Comics of Mountain View, California has closed. But here's the good news. Lee's Comics eBay store is still going strong with over 10,000 vintage comics, the majority of which are now on sale for half off. Choose from Lee's huge stock of golden, silver, bronze, and modern age comics, and specializing in Silver Age Marvel titles. You can count on friendly service, accurate grading, and quick, secure shipping backed by a money-back guarantee. To check out Lee's eBay store, go to eBay. Click Advanced Search to the left of the search bar, scroll down to Sellers, and enter Lee's Comics Inc., period. That's LEESCOMICS INC, period. Don't forget the period. Lee's Comics is shipping daily with no delays. New items daily. Mention the Fun Ideas Podcast and get a free bonus gift.
Long title, Looking for the Good Times, Examining the Monkees Song One by One, by Michael A. Ventrella and Mark Arnold. A book that examines each song, gives lots of details about each song and our own personal opinions. You can find this book on Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, and anywhere where good books are being sold. Our webpage is wordpress.monkees.com, where you can see many of the songs and give your own opinions of them. And we will be discussing this more on Zilch.
Hey Michael, it says here we've written another book about the Monkees. Wasn't the first one enough?
Not at all, Mark. Our original book, Looking for the Good Times, Examining the Monkees Songs One by One, was very successful, but only covered half the story.
Which half?
The group half. Our new book, Headquartered, A Timeline of the Monkees' Solo Years, covers the solo half.
Who knew the Monkees recorded so many solo albums?
Not only that, but this book covers all of their solo projects, including stage shows, horse racing, running record labels, directing and starring in TV shows and movies, voice acting, and jail.
Jail? Did the Monkees go to jail?
Ah, you have to read the book to find out.
You sold me. Have you sold them?
Who's them?
Those people out there listening to this.
Well, listen to this. This book has discographies, photos, and other information about the prefab four, Mickey, Davey, Peter, and Mike, the Solo Monkees, plus another nifty cover by Scott Shaw.
Wow, he did our last cover. And this one's equally good. Where can you get this masterpiece?
Announcer.
Announcer? That's me. Get Headquartered, a timeline of the Monkees' solo years, written by Michael A. Ventrella and Mark Arnold. Those two guys. It's available in hardback, paperback, or ebook from BearManorMedia.com or from Amazon. Get your copies today.
Cool. I'm going to get one today. Currently, I'm working on my Mad and Disney books, as well as articles on the Pink Panther and on Popeye for Back Issue magazine. Our guest today has put on Beatles and Monkees conventions, tours of Liverpool, and used to publish Good Day Sunshine. Here he is, Charles Rosenay. Okay, on the phone today I have Charles F. Rosenay, exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. That's how I first knew you. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you for including those. They're silent, but I appreciate you mentioning them.
And as I usually do on these type of conversations, I just say, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got interested in doing things for the Beatles, the Monkees, and everything else that you do.
Yeah, I appreciate you asking. So around the late 70s, I was working as an intern at a theater. And at the place, I learned all the things not to do in show business. It went out of business really quick. But whilst there, I was working for a gentleman from Cleveland who had moved to Connecticut, thought he was going to do a real big entertainment complex, and said, hey, why don't you do, you're always talking about the Beatles. You go to the Beatles conventions, and there's in Boston and New York. Why don't you do one in New Haven here at my place? And I said, sure. He goes, well, let's call your company Liverpool Productions. and it was born in this theater in New Haven where we decided, okay, we're going to do a Beatles convention. But, of course, he went out of business before the time to do that. So I said, I'll move it to a hotel. Had no idea what I was doing. Took my parents' money, sold a butcher cover and some memorabilia, and put on a convention that only had maybe one dealer, one special guest, and a handful of folks who came who were friends of mine. Wow. And I don't know how it exploded, but from there, produced more of the conventions in Connecticut, did it in Boston in 1980, had it in Miami in 1984, where it drew about over 50,000 people. It was the largest Beatles event for the 20th anniversary of the Beatles coming to America. Mm-hmm. Did that in Miami, and then I was, the person to go to for all the people who wanted conventions in secondary and tertiary markets, Denver, Seattle. It was just really cool, upstate New York, and I was doing shows all over the place. And at the same time, I was publishing a Beatles magazine called Good Day Sunshine, which I think you might have gotten a copy or two of down the road.
Yes.
And that was from 81 on. From 83 on, I started doing the Beatle tours to Liverpool, which we've done every summer except for this year because of COVID. And being a big Monkees fan, I thought, wow, I'd love doing these Beatle conventions. Let's bring the Monkey conventions that they were having in, a really small level to a bigger level. Brought in Peter Tork, who was the first major guest. A Beatle had never been to a Beatles convention. Monkees never been to a Monkey convention. We got Peter Tork, and then we also had Pete Best from the Beatles at, a Beatle convention. And you know what? So years later, still doing the Beatle tours, still doing Beatle music festivals. And you know what? This morning I was playing some solo Beatle stuff for the kids, which I didn't think they'd known, and they did. I was really proud of them. Devil Deep Blue Sea and Beautiful Boy, and some of the stuff that I thought they didn't get exposed to growing up, and they're in their teens now and they knew every song. So it made me very proud.
Very cool. Now, I have like a zillion questions based on everything you said. So I'll just kind of go through things that popped in my mind. So on that very first show you did, you said you had one dealer and you had like one guest. Who was the guest? I'm just curious.
I was afraid you were going to ask me that. The dealer was Johnny O. Johnny Otero was famous for selling Beatles satin jackets. Oh. And he'd be at every convention, and he just rolled the dice and gambled with me, and we became so close friends. In fact, he came to Japan with me, and he did, a lot of conventions with me wherever I would go. And we had a few local guys. There was one guy who happened to have 16 millimeter of copy of Magical Mystery Tour. So I said, if you let me show it, you can have a table and sell stuff. So we did. He was only one national deal. We had about 5 or 6 other exhibitors. But living in Connecticut at the time, where I still do, of course, Louise Harrison was living in Connecticut. She was in Danbury. And I thought, all right, she's in Connecticut. I'm having a convention. I'll get her. Of course, I had no way to reach her. Didn't have a number. Didn't have an email. There was no emails in those days. No internet. No way to reach her. So I figured, all right, I'll put on the convention, build it, and they will come. And she'll reach me, and she'll want to come, but she never did. Oh. So we got this gal named Terry Weidman, who was the president of the Beatlemania fan club, which was a big deal at the time because Beatlemania was on Broadway, selling out, being a big deal. And she was there actually the official president of their fan club, and she was my special guest. That's how that's how I don't know what the word is, but we really weren't to the point of where we were getting guests like Cynthia Lennon and John Lennon's sister Julia and Alan Williams and Alf Bicknell and Norm Rossington and Pete Best and all those amazing guests, Richie Havens. It's just on and on and on through the years. But that was a good spring point. We had a local band. I'll tell you a funny story. We had this group called Apple, and they were amazing. You go to any club in Connecticut on any given night in those days, they were playing and selling out, and they were great. They were the best Beatles bar band that ever existed. And I say that because their whole repertoire was danceable. So, whether it was Devil in Her Heart, it was a little up-tempoed, it was a little faster. They would do everything to make it danceable. And I thought, great, I'm going to bring them to the convention. Only charging, $5 to get in. And, this is going to sell out because everywhere they go, they'll promote it. Well, they couldn't promote whatever they want because in all those places, the club owner said, no, you never promote anything else except you're next to Peter. So they didn't promote it. And what I didn't realize is all the people who went to see them were going to see them, at the local tavern where they could drink all night, get drunk, dance to Beatles songs, and no cover charge. So these people who were big fans of this band never wanted to go to a convention. They weren't, they weren't going to pay the $5 and not get to drink their heads off. So we learned quickly in future years we used, real Beatle tribute bands.
I assume you eventually did get Louise Harrison, correct?
Well, you know what? No, we didn't.
Wow.
And I'll tell you a very interesting story. Louise and I, of course, known each other. We were friends for a while, but she never appeared at a convention. But in the mid-'80s, I was producing a show in Connecticut, and we had Joey Molland and we had May Pang. But the headliners was, and this was my whole advertising campaign, was coming to the Beatles convention, McCartney, Lennon, and Harrison. How is that possible, right, Mark? Well, of course,
it's not the.
It was Ruth McCartney. It was Cynthia Lennon, which is a big name, and it was Louise Harrison. But Louise backed out, and it was really weird because we were friends, and then she said everything she does for fans, and everything she does for charity. But for some reason, the fans didn't matter at this show, and the fact that I was going to give an appearance fee to charity for her didn't matter. I think she was told by another Beatle convention producer, who shall remain nameless, that if she does my shows, she may not be able to do his shows anymore. And so all of a sudden she didn't speak to me anymore, and I got a call from someone who represented her who said, I'm sorry, she's no longer available. So that kind of sucked because we wanted to promote it as Lennon, McCartney, and Harrison at a convention, but it was still a McCartney and a Lennon, and so Louise never appeared at many of my shows.
Any Starkey relatives?
No, but I knew Harry Graves, who was his stepdad, pretty well because in the early tours that we would take to Liverpool, we'd see him, and we'd also see Uncle Charlie, John Lennon's uncle. We'd see a lot. So there was a lot of really cool people who sadly have passed away. God rest their souls. But that was the closest we got to a Ringo relative. But I'll tell you, getting Pete Best, at the time was a real coup because he hadn't done anything in the States, and he hadn't really, people, Sour Grapes, Pete Best, really, and they learned what a great guy he was and how fan-friendly he was and what great stories he told. So it was a mutually rewarding relationship. I represented him for a few years, actually, in the States and booked him with someone else on a college tour and did a lot of great things with Pete. And that was at the time that he had released his his biography. So it was really great timing for that.
Very cool. Now, you mentioned the shall remain nameless other conventions. I'll just keep it on that level, but I mean, have you had any sort of flack with the competition like that? I mean, is there a big competition to get guests, and I want my show to be the best and everything? I mean, like, I'm kind of more from the comic book world, And it seems like
Yeah.
everybody kind of generally gets along. You know, they don't compete tooth and nail too much for guests. I mean, everybody just does their tours and everybody shows up to everything.
Sure.
So
Sure, and idyllically, I mean, that's how I would love it would be. I was very close with a gentleman by the name of Joe Pope.
Yeah.
And Joe was the originator, the pioneer, did the first Beatles convention in America, did the Strawberry Field Forever Beatles fanzine, which was a big inspiration for my Good Day Sunshine. Love Joe, and he should rest in peace. He did a lot for Beatle fandom, you know, bootleg, everything. He was the man. And when I first did my Beatles convention in New Haven, I actually dedicated the event to my forefathers. I put Joe Pope and Mark Lapidus right in my program book. And I guess I mentioned a name. Sorry. Without mentioning names, there's people who might feel that they have exclusivity, who feel that they're the only ones who should be doing things that anyone else doesn't deserve to do. I don't know. But I was getting guests that no one else was. I had John Lennon's sister Julia before anyone else, Norm Rossington from A Hard Day's Night, Pete Best before anyone else, May Pang before anyone else. I could go down the line of guests that I had before anyone, but not because of any other reason, but I was their friend. We met in Liverpool some of the times. We hit it off on a personal level first. Sam Leach, one of the early Beatle promoters, just a wonderful guy, and always brought him over for conventions. The Beatles, the son of the Beatles, Taylor, Gordon Millings, Dougie Millings' son. So a lot of really cool people, and I don't think there was a jealousy that I did that, but I think that somewhere down the road, probably in 1984, when I had that Miami show, and 50,000 people attended. So ridiculous compared to 5,000 people who come to a normal 3-day show.
Yeah.
And I was on CNN, and I was on all these channels talking about the Beatles' 20th anniversary. At that point, I was the go-to guy, publishing Good Day Sunshine, doing conventions. When they wanted a guest, or if there's someone passed away, how do I get in touch with Sid Bernstein? How do I get in touch with Alan Williams? I was a media focal point, so they would call me and I would hook that up. So I was really tight with media, and I got a lot of coverage in those days. And I think it upset someone else who was doing the conventions and the fests and all that, because I was banned from their shows. And we made up through the years and became what I thought, cordial. And I started going to their events and promoting my tours. And not so much promoting Good Day Sunshine, but that was my big thing. I would go to those shows and promote my tour. And I guess now, fast forward ahead to 2014. It's the Beatles' 50th anniversary, right?
Ouch.
And I'm doing shows at the Hudson Theater in New York, the Town Hall nightclub, and the Apollo Theater.
Wow.
4 nights of mega shows. I mean, when I say mega, we're talking about acts like Tommy James, Mary Wilson of the Supremes, Geraldo Rivera, Danny Aiello, Leslie Uggams, Lulu, Gary U.S. Bonds. I mean, these are huge names who are all part of this week-long celebration. Al Jardine from the Beach Boys, and they're coming to do Beatles songs plus their songs for 4 nights. Well, there happens to be a major Beatle convention also in New York at the same time. And it's, they moved it out of New Jersey, moved it to New York. It's a big deal. I don't know why are we having this conversation about about the other show. Well, the other show must have been very upset that I was doing 4 nights in Manhattan, thinking that I'm doing it to hurt him for I don't know what crazy reason, but I'm doing it because it's the Beatles' 50th anniversary, and this is what I do. And we had 4 sold-out nights, amazing event. it only complemented the other event, which people, if they were coming from, Oshkosh or wherever, could go to the convention during the day, spend all their money buying stuff, having a great time, and then go to this other concert at night. I mean, this was great symmetry.
Yeah.
But I guess not, because since then I've, again, been banned from that convention. So it's sad. It's sad. I don't want to be. I want to be friends.
Yeah.
I want to attend. I want to be able to promote my tours there. I send in ads that get rejected. So thank you for giving me a forum for for venting. But
I'm always curious about these things because I was a subscriber for Good Day Sunshine for years. I don't think I have every issue because I think I started about 83. That's also when I started subscribing to Beatle Fan too. Because I just wanted more stuff, and I got Club Sandwich and everything else. And it was around 83. Even though I'd been a Beatle fan for years, I just wanted more stuff to get. And yours always attracted me because he always did, like, little cassette tapes of, like, at that point, hard-to-find music. I mean, now, maybe not so much, but I still cherish those tapes and stuff.
Once a year we would do the Christmas issue on cassette. Right. And the inspiration for that was Joe Pope, because for Strawberry Fields, for years, he was putting out flexi discs.
Right.
And that was that generation. So my generation was cassettes. I guess the next generation would have been, I don't want to say 8-track, it would have been CDs or DVDs. Right. And, it's sad because I run a haunted house in Connecticut, and there's 4 or 5 other haunted attractions in the state. Dude, we are such good friends, and we promote each other, and we want someone to go to one and have a great time and then go to the other. And I feel that way with horror conventions, and I feel that way with everything. If someone loves going to one, you got to believe they're going to another too.
Right.
Let them go. There's enough fans to go around. It would be only good if someone was walking out of my show and I was handing them a flyer. Hey, look what's coming up, in next February or March.
And like I said, at comic book conventions, they're always handing out flyers for another one, especially if you're in the same area. It's like, oh, this is next weekend? Sure, I'll go to that one too. But here's the weird thing,
you mentioned Beatle Fan. I'm the biggest. I mean, I've gotten the issues from day one, and I love Beatle Fan, and I think we even traded ads from the while we were still there and all that, and we would consult each other. Bill King is a great guy. I love Beatle Fan, and it's thank goodness it survived all these years, and the internet hasn't crashed it. It's so great. Yeah.
But the thing that's kind of bizarre about the whole thing, and this is me being a California native and now living in Oregon, and I've said this for years, and then always somebody says, well, they tried a show, but it didn't work. Beatle conventions seem to be a big East Coast thing. And same thing with Three Stooges conventions, horror conventions, everything. It's like the only thing we get out of here is like comic books and stuff, and maybe some autograph shows. And that's why, it's like, how come nobody ever does it out here? Is it because everything's kind of more because of Ed Sullivan and New York centrified, and England's closer to New York than here, or whatever? It never gets out to California. But every time I say that, somebody says, "Well, they tried one in San Francisco once and it flopped." Oh, I don't remember it because I lived there for 10 years. I think I would know about it. I remember there was one in L.A., but I couldn't make it because even L.A. is like a jaunt, from San Francisco.
Sure.
And so
in a perfect world, I don't think there's a support of it now as much as in the heyday. But there should have been Beatle conventions in every state. There's no reason why you couldn't support it for 1,000 people. So let's say there was once a Beatle Fest in San Francisco, and there was many years of LA, of course, and then there was a San Diego Come Together Beatle Fair for many years, which I don't know if they still have. But the West Coast never really supported it like the East Coast, or else it would have still been done. But some promoters might feel that if it doesn't get 3, 4, 5, 6,000 people, it's not worth doing.
Yeah.
I'm not of the same school of thought. I'll do a Monkees convention, and if 500 people come, I'm ecstatic because
that's what I was asking. I mean, it's how much is enough? It's like to me, it's like are there fans out here? I don't even know how to organize a convention, nor would I really want to. I like to attend them more than, but it's like, it seems like if I did one here or in Portland, Oregon or something like that, I could probably get 500 people to show up just with the name Monkees,
We've started something here. Let's go forward with it. You and I will do a Beatles convention.
It'll be the last thing I do before I die. I'll do one convention and go, wow, that was a big pain in the ass. No, but it is kind of curious. We did get Star Trek conventions and things like that, but yeah, it was kind of weird. Just certain topics never made it out here. I would love to have horror conventions. There is one in Portland, but they get too centralized. Like they say, well, we'll cover like horror novels or something. It's like, no, I want it to be like classic Universal or Hammer films or something, whatever. But I'd love a Monkees.
It's really fun. It's really funny because some, like Chiller Theater is the name of a convention that started out as horror, but now it's more of like your LA celebrity show.
Yeah.
It's more pop culture and it's everything. And it tried to do a show once in Virginia, and it bombed. And Kevin, who's a good friend of mine, who is the producer of it, said, "I'll never go back there. Let me stay where I'm." Some of that, as silly as this sounds, in 1980, was it 1980? Yeah, when we lost John, of course. So in 2010, I did an anniversary of John's passing. And we did 3 concerts, 3 tributes called Remember Lennon, Imagine 80. And we did them in my hometown, New Haven. I did one in New London, which is an hour away, and in, I think, Massachusetts. And the New Haven one sold 1,000. Great sellout, phenomenal. The New London one sold 200. The Massachusetts one sold 300. Why is that? The same show?
Yeah.
In different markets. I think it's because in my backyard, more people knew of it somehow.
Yeah.
So if I'm doing a convention in New Haven, people are going to know about it. And now if I move that convention all of a sudden to Philadelphia, it's not going to, it may be great, it may not have the same amount of people.
Yeah.
So if someone is doing a festival of some sort in New Jersey, and that's in their backyard, and then they do it in Chicago, and that's working pretty good, and they do it in LA, and it's okay. I think the further you are away from home for some reason, it's not going to be as successful. I think living in the community and knowing your media so well and knowing which papers, this is a free newspaper, but everyone reads it for events. Somebody from out of that area might not know of that paper. Radio stations, let's do 12 interviews. I can do 12 interviews in my hometown, but if you told me, in Portland, you got to go do some interviews, maybe I'll find one. Maybe I'll find an FM rocker. Maybe I'll find 2. But someone who lives there and knows the culture and knows the community so well can find, there's this amazing AM oldies station that would do an interview, but we wouldn't know that.
Yeah.
So sometimes, for an outside promoter to go to a new area and to do an event, I don't want to say they're in a foreign land, but it always works best when you're doing shows in your own homestead, on your own land.
It just seems weird that there aren't the same sort of rabid type fans like yourself, let's say, that would actually want to create a convention out here in their backyard here, But I guess that's the difference between West Coast and East Coast. I don't know. One of these days I'll have to just make a trip. I mean, I've been to New York many times, but never for convention or in the general area. It's always just been for, pleasure, except for once I did do a art museum show, but it's like I just never think about, I should schedule it in conjunction with a convention and go there. I just, but I've done it here. I've gone down to San Diego Comic-Con many times, and things like that.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's just a weird thing, but I can't put my finger on it. Now, moving back to your publication there, I'll talk a little bit about that. So how did you, obviously Beatle Fan was already underway and a few others, and I think Beatles Monthly had come back and a few other magazines. What prompted you to start Good Day Sunshine? Did you think, there's 10 Beatle magazines, let's have another one?
So prior prior to starting it, people were always saying, why don't you do a Beatles magazine? And my answer was, why should I? There's so many out there.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, it got to a point. So here I am. I'm doing conventions for three or 4 years.
Yeah.
I'm building up this amazing network of people who they come to my convention, and we're friends, and we're pen pals. What a pen pal, for your listeners who don't know what a pen pal is, this is pre-email. When you wanted to communicate with someone who was in Springfield, Massachusetts, from New Haven, Connecticut, or Bronx, New York, or New Jersey, you had to send a letter because calling them would be 10 cents a minute, and forget that. That's a long distance phone call. Right. So you'd do the 12-cent stamp, and you'd write a letter, and you'd send a little Beatles clipping or something. And I was literally spending 4 or 5 hours a day writing to these people who were fellow fans who had come to conventions or asking and I thought, wait a second. I heard about this little Beatles fanzine because I was subscribing to everything. I was getting all of them, but Joe Pope's had been in really stopped happening. It really disappeared for a while. Yeah. And this magazine called Good Day Sunshine out of Puerto Rico was going out of business, and I said, well, I'll just take it over. I don't want you to lose your subscribers. I don't want it to disappear. I love the name. And I said, can I change it to Dig It? I wanted to call it Dig It because I thought Dig It was a great title of a magazine, which someone who sees it will understand if they're a Beatle fan, the connection. But if they're not a Beatle fan, cool, I can dig it. It's a nice name for a rock and roll magazine. Yeah. So that gave me, the possibilities of expanding in the future. Well, long story short, she said, no, if you can take it over, it has to be Good Day Sunshine. I said, okay. Took it over. We had an agreement. She sends me her subscriber list, and it was 26 subscribers. Oh. I thought, wow, I'm going to be starting with, 400 or 500, whatever. Yeah. And that was some of the zines who printed, at home in those days only had 20 or 30 subscribers. Yeah. And I thought, well, that's okay, because I have 20 or 30 friends who are pen pals. If I have 50 or 60 or 100, that's great. I don't have to write separate letters because I could keep them up to date with the Good Day Sunshine forum. And while it made sense because the first page of every issue was my letter. Right. And it told what I was up to and what I was promoting and what I was doing. And it was basically the same letter that I would have probably written 20 or 30 times to different people. So that was the genesis of Good Day Sunshine, was to be in touch with all the fans, not having any idea that it was going to explode into 5,000, 10,000. We were in every distribution. We were in every Tower Records. We were in every Barnes and Noble. I had no idea it would become the biggest part of what I do. Now, mind you, I'm a full-time party DJ. I'm producing conventions. I'm producing tours. I'm starting Dracula tours. I'm starting ghost tours. All this, I'm taking care of elderly parents, and I'm publishing a magazine. You've published books. You know how much time goes into it. Now imagine putting out an 80-page or 100-page magazine or book every other month.
Yeah. I never even did that. I mean, I did my Harveyville Fun Times for 21 years. I think the biggest issue might have been... the last ones were bigger, but the when it was quarterly was like 36 pages, but most of the time they're like 20, 24 pages, and it was quarterly. It wasn't bi-monthly, and it's like, and I said, wow, and I think you were doing it all by yourself. You didn't have a big staff or anything like that. You might have had.
I had my parents, and sometimes friends would come over, and we'd hang out, and we'd play Beatle videos, and what would we do? I would spend 2 months finishing the magazine. I'd get it to the printer, and I would relax for a day, because the next day I had to start addressing 2,500 envelopes.
Oh, jeez.
So until we got computers that printed them out, I would hand address every envelope. and then we'd send them out, and until there was bulk postage, you know, and even bulk postage was a horror because you'd have to separate it by zip code and sort it and get these issues out. Well, anyway, finally it came to a point where I couldn't do it anymore. My folks were really getting on age. I had to take care of them. I had a DJ company where I was working every weekend, but I had like 20 guys under me working 7 nights a week. It was a real huge thing. We were the largest DJ company, all New England, really successful on that end. And that was kind of paying, that was subsidizing for GDS because Good Day Sunshine never made money. Yeah. You know, by putting out a publication regularly, you're doing it for the love of it, and you're doing it for continuity. And a great guy by the name of Matt Hurwitz, you know, who was my best writer, did these amazing collector's columns and great stuff, said, I don't have anything in my life. I will take it over. And this was like a mazel tov. I'm so happy. Finally, someone is going to take this over. You know, it's going to be the higher quality. Every cover will be color. He's going to continue the thing. And I think we put out a few more issues, and he said, I can't take it anymore. Yeah. I'm allergic to the computer screen. It's too much for me. and GDS, unfortunately, you know, fell by the wayside. And but it leaves great memories. Amazing issues, history, you know, every issue had the most. Bill Harry would contribute to it. There was just amazing articles and photos, and I'm just very, very proud, you know, of the 20-whatever years that we did it for.
I was going to say, do you know the number of the last issue? I don't even know if I was subscribing to the bitter end. I remember Matt taking over now that you mention it, but do you know how many issues got out ultimately, or no?
I don't. I want to say...
It was over 100.
No, yeah, I would guess. I hope we hit 100, because if not, we should go back and make sure we do.
Do one last issue. Yeah, I didn't make it to 100. I got to 75, and I said, I got to stop. You know, it's like, but yeah, that was after 21 years. I don't know. So when did you take it over? You said you took it over, so what was your... I started it in the beginning of 1980 was when I said I was going to put it out. Okay. And then we had a huge convention. Do you remember the issue number of that one?
Well, we started at 1.
Oh, you started over again. You just got the name. Okay.
Yeah. We started at 1.
Got it. Okay. Because I wasn't a subscriber then, like I said.
You know, if you're in the comic book field, you know that you always want to start with a number 1.
Yes. Which causes great confusion, too, in being in the comic book field. It's like, I got 37 Superman number 1s, and only 5 of them are worth money. Which ones are they? You know, it's like, you know.
I get all excited. Wonder Woman number 1. I'm so psyched. And I open it up, and it's, you know, it's 2015, and it's worth $1.99.
Yes, exactly. It's worth less than the cover.
Right.
But that's the case, and it's like, oh, geez, just do legacy numbering, please. You know, it's like, okay, I get it. Okay, all right. But
Good Day Sunshine. We had a major Beatles convention in October of that year, and this is the saddest part. We did a birthday card for John, because it was the week before his convention, and we were going to deliver it on his birthday to the Dakota, and we did it. We got a gigantic bedspread, a giant sheet, a bed sheet, and everyone signed, you know, happy birthday, and we called the Guinness Book of World Records and said, hi, this is the largest birthday card ever. It's going to a celebrity, and we submitted it to Guinness. Guinness ultimately rejected it because it wasn't a card. It was an actual sheet, and they didn't consider it a birthday card. So we arranged to bring it to the Dakota. Yoko, I guess through aides or assistants, had agreed that we'd be able to come bring it in, blah, blah, blah. Rolling Stone magazine met us there, and it was myself, Mike Strito, Dean Falcone, a few friends of mine, and my mom. We all took the trip to New York, and we parked and we walked over, and we wrapped this all so nicely, and got to there, there was a doorman. There's always a doorman at the Dakota, and he called up, and the message came back, not that the Lennons were away, but I'm told to tell you that the Lennons are away. and John and Yoko can't receive this, so they're going to send someone down. And they sent someone down. It might have been Fred Seaman. It might have been Mario Casciano. It might have been I don't know who the assistant was that came, because it was a blur. Everything at that point was a blur, and we gave it over to them. Never got a note, never got a thank you. I don't know if I ever put my return address or a phone number or any way that they could have even gotten back to me, because I had expected to give it to them personally, to John personally. And as we know, he passed in December of that year. So I never got to meet John, and I got to meet Paul, George, and Ringo in subsequent years. But that's the saddest, and that's the one that always, it's just so sad for so many reasons on so many levels. Yeah. And that was just the worst end of that year.
Right. It's hard to believe it's been the same amount of time that he was alive. It's been since he passed away. It's like 40 years. Jeez. It's like,
unbelievable.
I was in high school then, and it's like, I took the next day off from school. I couldn't do it. It's like, and I was kind of feeling under the weather too, because it was December. I always seem to get sick every December anyway. But so I stayed home and listened to Beatles music and cried. So that's what I did at age 14. I just turned 14. No, it was right before I turned 14. Yeah. Because my birthday is a week later, and it's like, and this is kind of a sad story, I suppose. My mom had already bought Double Fantasy to give me for Christmas, and she says, well, since he died, I'll give it to you early. Here it is. And I was like, ah! I was like bawling. And I listened to that thing, and then it got to the point where I couldn't listen to it anymore. It's like I had to stop.
Right.
And I didn't listen to that album for years, and then now I can listen to it. It's no big deal. It's like, but yeah, during the 80s, I don't think I could listen to it at all. It was just so painful, just that album. I mean, I could listen to Milk and Honey or any of the later reissues or whatever. Yeah. It was just that one album. I was like,
sure. I get it.
Yeah.
Well, the first issue of Good Day Sunshine wound up coming out right after John passed. So it was a tribute to him, that first issue.
Yeah.
And we used some photos that were never published. And that was a newspaper. We printed it as like the size of the Daily News or the New York Times, a fold-over newspaper. But then it went, to a standard after that. But it's really, I'm remembering, because we haven't thought about this in a long time, when John was killed, so many people were calling, how do you feel, how do you feel, how do you feel? And I didn't sleep. I did not sleep, because there was endless calls. But it was also the media calling, can we interview you about this? Can you get us Sid Bernstein? We want to talk to him about this. Can we get May Penn? They were calling me, so I was like, no, I don't want to I don't want to do that now.
Yeah.
And about a week later, I had a meeting with my Capitol Records rep, in Hartford, Connecticut, because I was a freshman at college and I was on a radio station, and I was the music director, so I would meet with some of the reps to get music. And we'd gone on the way there, and we're listening to the radio, and Starting Over came on. Yeah. And I pulled over. My mom was in the car. She wanted to go shopping in that area. I just started crying because it hit me. It took a week. Yeah. And I wasn't listening to it, and it hit me, and it just, it was so strong. And I thought, no, Starting Over, he's not. It's just the opposite. Yeah. There's no tour, no more. It was just so overwhelming for a while there. And you know how people lose someone, and everyone grieves differently, but sometimes it kicks in. You don't know when, at a later time, and that's what happened with John for me.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yes, strangely enough, he's the only one I have his autograph, because I got it in some sort of contest. And I was thinking, was that through Good Day Sunshine? But I don't know, because I think it was through another one. But did you used to run little drawings where people would win little prizes, or was that one of the other fanzines?
I did, but I don't remember ever giving away a Lennon autograph.
Yeah.
I know I had plenty of them because my friend Mario Casciano, for some reason, he was an assistant of John's, and he had a few of those. Listen to this poster. Listen to this bumper sticker. Yeah. It was a John Lennon, one of the albums. I think it was Walls and Bridges. Listen to this, and he had given me one of them for myself, and I think one to give away. Yeah. But I don't remember unless it's that.
Yeah. Well, it's not on one of those. It's actually written on a piece of an envelope. And it says John Lennon 75 with a little sketch. And it was just a random drawing of all subscribers. I honestly don't remember if it was Good Day Sunshine, but it's still a cool story, so I'll tell it. Anyway, so
that's great.
they did a random drawing, and I actually had to pay for it, which is kind of bizarre. But it was only $25. And I said, even if it's fake, it's only $25, But I legitimately believe it's really his autograph because I've compared it to other things and shown it to people and stuff like that. And it was the way Lennon usually signed. He'd put a little cartoon of himself or sometime with the Yoko on or something, and he put the date, and so it said John Lennon 75. So somebody obviously got his autograph in 1975, and it's like, kind of a weird thing.
Definitely wasn't us. I know I definitely never charged $25 for a prize winner.
Yeah, it might have been one of the other. Like I said, after his death, it's like I just went Beatles nutso even more. I mean, it's like I had already gone Beatles nutso because, I became a Beatles fan in 77, and so everything was like Saturday Night Live and, the boat people and Campuchia. It was like, oh, they're going to get together again. And so I got really excited about it, and it's like, and then when Lennon started putting out new music and they rumored, oh, he's going to tour in early 81, I go, okay, I'm going to go to this, I don't know how, but I'm going to go because I was pretty young still, but it's like I ended up seeing the Rolling Stones in 81, so it wasn't like I couldn't go to concerts.
Right, sure.
But it's just weird listening back on it and everything like that. But it kind of changed everything after that. And I even tell that. Let me ask you about this, because I tell people this, especially younger people, and they don't get it. That there was a time like in the late 70s where the Beatles were kind of considered really passé, and nobody cared about them. And I always say proof of that is when Ringo did his TV special in 1978, and they actually had to hire people to be like fans. And it's like there was just a brief moment in the late 70s where nobody really cared about the Beatles. That was old news. I mean, people cared more about the Bee Gees even because they did Saturday Night Fever and stuff like that.
So I'm going to answer that. I'm going to answer that, Mark.
Yeah.
So I think that this Sgt. Pepper film with the Bee Gees actually gave the whole Beatles world a curveball, because you're also talking about a time where the Beatle fanzines were proliferating, where conventions were sprouting up, where Beatlemania was now on Broadway and selling out at the Winter Garden Theater. Was there a lull? Perhaps, but I think that was all a lashback from the Sgt. Pepper film, because at the same time, one of the most brilliant films of all time came out by Gale and Zemeckis, and that's I Want to Hold Your Hand.
Oh, yeah.
Starring, Eddie Deason and a cast of great characters, Wendy Jo Sperber. And you look back on that, it's one of the best. It's so funny. It's so forgotten. And it's because of the Pepper film. That Sgt. Pepper film was so banned by critics, was so that perhaps, then Ringo does his Prince and the Pauper movie, and maybe that's why there's a bunch of things that really fall by the wayside. But that was such a short time that was the case. Yeah, but I think that's the reason, and it's so silly that something like that would affect, the real thing. Yeah. But it really did,
Yeah, but I think even the solo records of all of them, except Lennon's, because he was on the hiatus, George Harrison didn't sell as well, and Back to the Egg didn't sell as well, and of course Ringo tanked with Ringo the Fourth and Bad Boy and things like that, and it's like, well, they're still the Beatles. That's what I was thinking. It's like, why can't they, sell a little bit better? And they were selling just a few years ago. What happened? I didn't understand all this, because I was a teenager. I was a young teenager, when all this was happening. And it's like, I liked them. We used to have this thing in 6th grade where we could, on Fridays, they allowed us to bring records to school to listen to. And I'd bring stuff like the Yellow Submarine soundtrack, and everybody'd say, I don't want to listen to that. And then, so I'd take it home, and everybody would be playing Saturday Night Fever for another week. And it's like, oh, geez. It's like, I like that album. I don't love that album even now. It's like, can't we listen to something else? It's like, Beatles are old. Who cares? They're, that was so 10 years ago. It's like, I like it.
Yeah, well, radio was very different then, and I'm a big proponent, being someone who's, been a DJ many years, of something called the career hit. Yeah. And if you look back on some of the people who had, amazing monster hits, and then their follow-ups were okay, but it was still a hit. Yeah. That would not have been the first hit or would not have been a hit years later. Yeah. So Ringo's album, if Oh My My is a hit, but if that comes out on Ringo the Fourth or Bad Boy or anything else, not even going to chart. Right. Whereas maybe A Man Like Me, if that comes out on the Ringo album that has all the great hits, it might be a hit. Or if 6 O'Clock is released as a single from that album, it might be a hit. So a lot of it is the career and the timing. Yeah. That's why so many people, one hit wonders. I worship one hit wonders because they were never able to capitalize on that amazing success of that one unbelievable song and even turn it into a follow-up hit. Yeah.
Although I will have to say, well, now we have Sirius and things like that, but just regular, I guess they call it terrestrial radio when it's just over-the-air radio. It's kind of weird. Like, even though McCartney has had 50 years of hits, they tend to just play Beatles stuff and Maybe I'm Amazed. And sometimes you might hear Band on the Run on the radio. And it's like, geez, what happened to this? And it's like Ringo never, you'd never hear a Ringo song anymore. And it's like,
right. But you're also talking about what format? You're talking about either classic rock, AOR,
just classic rock that would play stuff in traditional days would have played more McCartney because, he was hip with Wings or, had some rockers and stuff like that. But it's like, now I love Maybe I'm Amazed, but it's like, geez, can I play something else too? It's like when the DJ happens to say, coming up next we'll have Paul McCartney on, it's like, I know, it'll be Maybe I'm Amazed, and sure enough after the commercial, dung, 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 it's Maybe I'm Amazed.
And it won't be Live and Let Die, because they're playing the Aerosmith version of it.
Or the Guns N' Roses version,
I'm sorry, right, Guns N' Roses, I'm thinking of Come Together. Yeah. You'll hear the Come Together by Aerosmith. And the Guns N' Roses Live and Let Die. Exactly right.
And it's like,
Paul,
go ahead.
Paul put out the new album, how many years it's been now. Great stuff on there. Yeah. And the album went to #1 and all that. But who was playing it? Terrestrial radio really wasn't playing it.
No.
And you put out, whether it's Elton John or Clapton doesn't record, it's any of those people who are legends of multi-generations. Yeah. And you think, well, Paul McCartney deserves to have a hit. Listen to all this great stuff. Egypt Station, there's a lot of great stuff on there. The terrestrial radio will not play it. Yeah. It doesn't have the bass.
It's so weird.
It's not rap. I get it, and it's what it is. It's sad, but it's what it is.
Yeah. It just reminds me of that story that happened a couple of years ago, or maybe 4 or 5 years ago. But you probably remember this. It was in the news, and McCartney was going to go to some party with Beck and a couple others, and they were turned away. And McCartney just quit.
An Oscar party.
Yeah, and he just quipped. Yeah. It's like, well, we'll have to record more hits, and it's like, well, he has a point. And I think this was before he did Egypt Station or even knew, so it might have been a few years back, And I go, wow, so it must have affected him a little bit because he's had 2 decent albums in recent times, although his voice is not as strong, but I still support him and everything, and I love the compositions and the musicianship on all of them. But it is really weird, and I noticed this, like I was literally looking up something about Sonny and Cher because I got some DVDs and stuff like that. I was looking at Cher's discography for an example. And during the 70s, when that show was on the air, the Sonny and Cher Comedy Hour, all her albums kind of tanked, and some of them didn't even chart. I mean, Yoko Ono charted better than her. And I'm like, this is Cher. And then now, in the last 10 or so years, whenever she's put out an album, which is not as frequent as she did back then, they hit like #3 and #2, and McCartney's Egypt Station hit #1, and I go, how does that work? Is this rigged or something? I mean, it's like they're not playing it on the radio, and do just enough fans buy it that one week to get it to number one, and then it drops off the chart the next week? I don't get how that works anymore.
Well, didn't Egypt maybe I'm wrong. That maybe wasn't Egypt Station.
That one
but,
did go to
Prince,
one. It was his first number one since Tug of War. They made a big deal about it, you know.
Right, but was that tied into a tour with a digital download of some sort?
Yeah, but I mean, McCartney's always touring the last 20 or so odd years since '89. You
right,
know, it's not like a big deal.
No, but Mark, I thought when you bought a ticket, you also got the album as a digital download.
Well, maybe, because I haven't gone to a McCartney tour for years because it costs too much now. Anyway.
Yeah, no, but Prince actually pioneered that many years ago by giving an album away with ticket sales, and as such, it's counted as a sale, and therefore it's like a given to shoot to number one.
Yeah.
And not a lot of artists do that for whatever reason, but I think I hate to say it because he's one of the deities to me, but I think that was what happened with a recent Paul album, and that it may have been the case because every ticket that was sold included that, and when it's reported as $1 or whatever as a record sale.
Right.
So if it goes to number one, sometimes it's because of that, but it deserves to go on to number one on its own merits. I just don't know if there's that many people who are still down, of a certain age. If you want McCartney music, you either want it on vinyl or CD. You're not going to download it. And if you look at the charts, what's number one is downloads.
Yeah.
So it's crazy.
Yeah, and nowadays, if you're just getting into McCartney as a solo artist, you'd probably be more likely to get a compilation like Pure McCartney over a brand new album that's untested and unknown, or whatever.
Yes,
I don't
exactly.
know. Yeah, so but they did that recently with that Monkees album, the Monkees Mike and Mickey tour. That one was a ticket tie-in. And but it didn't go to number one. It did chart, but it was. It did
chart amazingly enough.
Yeah, so I guess that's something.
It's a great live album. They say finally a Monkees live album. There's been a bunch of them.
Yeah,
obviously.
Yeah, but I get what Sandoval's saying about it. Andrew Sandoval. He says
this one counts.
This one counts only because they actually set it up to do it instead of just like, let's plug into the mixing board and see what happens.
Correct.
Yeah,
right.
So
agreed,
I get it. But I still wouldn't tout it as the first. Because. But whatever. You have to say whatever you need to do to sell albums, I suppose.
I'm fine with it. I mean, I love the album and I love the Monkees.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the Monkees for a bit. We were talking about Beatles the whole time. So you kind of transitioned from Beatles to Monkees more in recent years. How did that come about, or were you always a Monkees fan?
No, I definitely did not transition in recent years. I was the biggest apologist for the Monkees in the times when...
Well, I mean, impressions from me from the outside. I go, hey, he was the Beatles guy, now he's doing all Monkee stuff. What's this? No, I didn't know.
No, and I got really... I would always get very defensive of that because, if people think, he made money on the Beatles, now he's doing the Monkees. It makes no sense. Because if you want to make money, you're not doing Monkees. Do Elvis, do something do Michael Jackson, it didn't make sense. I did Monkees because I was a first-generation Monkees fan. When Pepper came out, I didn't get it. I listened to AM radio. It didn't list the songs on the album. I didn't know any hits. I didn't get Pepper when it came out. I got the Monkees albums, and I love the Monkees. And of course, it wasn't long before I got back to the Beatles. But I kept playing Monkees, and when there was this group, Dolenz, Jones, Boyce and Hart, why can't I see them? Where are they? Why aren't they on TV?
Right.
And I there was no way to keep in touch with what the Monkees were doing except through this fanzine called Monkey Business Fanzine out of New Jersey. And come to find out, this gal, Maggie McManus, is putting on these little conventions in Trenton, New Jersey, where I can actually go. And I go one year, and another year I go, and I bring, I had endless Monkees convention, Monkees memorabilia and records and all this. I sold everything. I couldn't believe that. I would put a picture of the Monkees that I clipped out of a magazine, and it sold. It was like, this never happens at Beatles shows. And I said to Maggie, I do the Beatle conventions. any chance you'd consider bringing it to Connecticut and bringing it to another level? I'd like to produce it with you. And she said, sure. And that was when we got Peter Tork in '83. Now, mind you, this was those 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
This was pre-'86 when they got together. People were still laughing at the Monkees being a made-up group. They still had no clue that they actually could play their own instrument. So, when it was announced that they might be, reforming and putting out another single, I was over the top because they were going to do their first concert at a place called the Concord Hotel in upstate New York in the Catskills, where as a kid I used to go with my parents. Every year we'd go to the Catskills for vacations. So there was a singles weekends there. I would go. I booked into the hotel a week before. That weekend. I booked in a week before in the hopes that I would get a glance at them. Mark, not only did I get a glance of it, but I ate dinner with them. I played softball with them. Yeah. I went to the rehearsals. I went to the shows. I sat in the front. Peter, I reminded him that he came to my convention in 1982. We became friends, and playing softball with Mickey and with Davey, it started a relationship which continued up until, Peter and Davey passed. We were still always in touch. Right. Mickey I've interviewed so many times, and he's been a guest at so many conventions. And Mike I had the pleasure of meeting just a few years ago on a solo tour. He was the elusive one for me, as many. Right. And so I was able to, meet them all, and I considered Davey and Peter, friends who I would just call. Davey would call, at Clear Blue Sky, the phone would ring. I wouldn't recognize the number. He'd go, Charles, this is Davey. Davey Jones? Hi, Davey. I'm like, what's going on? Hey, I found in my attic a bunch of Beatle cards. What are those worth? Wow. I would say, about $1 a piece. All right, I was hoping they were worth more. All right, thanks, bye. Get you down to Clear Blue Sky. I'd get those calls, so that was pretty special.
You should have said, sign your name on all of them, and then we'll talk.
Had I known. But I was a Monkee fan from the beginning, and just never thought there would be a market for doing Monkee conventions. And so going back to '83 was my first Monkees convention. In '87 I did one in New Jersey which had Peter, Mickey, Davey, Boyce, and Hart. Ooh. I co-produced that one. In 2013 I produced one with two gals, and we had it was a tribute to Davey because he had just passed, and Mickey was there and Peter was there, and just everyone you could think of. It was probably the biggest Monkees convention of all time. And then we did one just this past February before COVID hit. We did one as a tribute to Peter Tork, and a lot of people who were involved in his, people who were in his bands, people who were toured with him, sound engineers, friends of his personal secretary, all were guests at the show. And it was like hearkening to the old days, because it was only a few hundred people. I never did it for the money. Money was raised for actually Peter Tork's charity, and it's because I love the Monkees. If you can see where my hand is now, Mark, I'm at the top of my ceiling with the Beatles. The Monkees are just under it, and then everybody else is towards the floor. So those two for me. Through the years I've loved Yellow, I've loved Raspberries, I've loved Prince, Badfinger. I can go on, Four Seasons, the Supremes. I can go on and on of, bands that I've loved through the years, the Beach Boys, the Dave Clark Five, but the Beatles and the Monkees, above all, heads, tails, they're my favorites. Yeah.
So, did you catch them right as they started on TV, or how did you first hear about them?
Oh, yeah. It was a dilemma in those days, because they were on, Batman was on, the Munsters were on, Addams Family. It was the greatest time to be growing up. Yeah. But I think there were conflicting shows when the Monkees were on. I can't remember if it was
the first season was Gilligan's Island was on the other station on the first
season.
Oh,
right. So then, being a little kid and having all those shows.
And no TiVo out there, folks.
Right, you had to watch it or pray that it would show again in reruns, because there was no TiVo, there was no VCRs. Yeah. You either caught it or didn't, and your Bible at that time was TV Guide. Right. It was the most important piece of literature in one's existence.
Yeah. I mean, if somebody put it on Facebook, this is a little aside, they said, do you think you were born in the wrong year? To me. Just in general, and people were saying, I wish I was born in the 90s, and I was like, oh, geez, but, I thought, okay, I was born in 66 at the very tail end of the year. In fact, the day I was born, I'll tell you, the Beatles were working on Strawberry Fields Forever, and I believe the Monkees were working on Daydream Believer on those, December 15, 1966, if I remember my facts correctly. I could be off on the songs on both, but they're both in the studio that day. And it's like, I go, they were already underway, they were already making hits. It's like, just one day if I was born like in 10 years earlier, just so I could, see a lot, and I think this guy, Jerry Beck, he's a big animation historian.
Of course.
He's like the guy I wanted to be, it's like he's exactly 10 years older than me, and he says, oh yeah, I went to this convention, and I did this show, and I caught everything on TV, and blah, 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 and it's like, so it's...
Jerry provided films for our earliest Monkees convention. Jerry Beck was great.
Yep.
It was a great time to grow up, and I wouldn't have had it any other way. And what was interesting about our generation, though, is we kind of knew everything about the generations before us. We knew Elvis, and we knew Dion, but we also knew Sinatra. We knew so much of that, World War II on. And I think it's sad that generations currently may not. I love when, the kids come to the conventions and they know all the things about the Beatles or the Monkees. And it's not just now second generation fans and kids of, parents who, it's third generation, it's grandkids. When I do the Beatle tours to Liverpool, I got grandparents bringing their grandchildren on these tours. And thank goodness, they're keeping that alive. But I guess everyone's generation is their favorite. The people who going to junior high school in the 80s are going to love, the hair bands and whatever was happening then. And the people of today, I'm sure, unfortunately, are going to love the hip-hop and all, whatever they're listening to today. And that's fine. My daughter, at one point said, Dad, come on, of course Miley Cyrus is bigger than the Beatles. and I wanted to kick her out of the house. But then years later, Eleanor Rigby came on, and she's singing every word. And I'm like, well, you would never listen to this. No, Dad, I was just teasing you in those days. Nothing's better than the Beatles. So I raised them right. I'm so happy. The kids were all raised on Beatles, Monkees, Four Seasons, Beach Boys, and now they're always listening and hearing solo stuff they didn't hear, and I'm so happy for them.
So no Billie Eilish convention for you in any time soon, right?
Not anytime soon. Growing up, people would say, "What's your favorite song of all time?" And this was 70s and 80s, and they would think I was going to say Strawberry Fields or who knows what Beatles song, and I would say Daydream Believer. Yeah. And they would stop them in their tracks.
Yeah.
But you know what? I put my money where my mouth when I got married. My first dance was I Will Love You Forever, Davy Jones. Oh, yeah. From, if you know it, from the Justice album. And then my second song was Here, There, and Everywhere by the Beatles. So, couldn't leave out a Beatles song because that was my favorite. I always said growing up, if I ever get married, that would be my song. But because I proposed to my wife at a Davy Jones concert, and he asked her to marry me on my behalf, and then he played that song, that had to be our wedding song. Right. So that's a little great story to share with you.
Let's see. I was going to say something about the Monkees. You probably don't know all my Monkees story, but see, I consider myself a first-generation Monkees fan, but they say, well, you weren't there when they debuted in 66, and it's like, okay, fine. Because, a generation is 20 years, isn't it? So it's but they go, so now it's like 12th generation fan, it's like, so I'm considered second generation because I didn't hear about them until they were on Saturday mornings. It's like, well, X me, because I wasn't born early enough. It's like, I don't know. It's like, but I will say my Monkees story because you're probably not familiar with it. Is that I didn't like it when I saw it on TV on Saturday mornings. It's like I like cartoons better. I hate to say so. Having live action men jumping around and acting like fools as a little 3 and 4 and 5 year old, I was like, I don't get it. I don't like it. but I did like the theme song. So I would watch the theme song on Saturday mornings, and I'd see him, romping around and everything like that. And as soon as the show started, I'd switch the channel or turn off the TV. Now, Monkees fans will probably say, sacrilege, sacrilege, and it's like, well, at least I like the theme song. But I will tell you this, it's, I was probably younger than you when Monkees debuted. When I saw it on a Saturday morning, it freaked me out when they're pushing Peter around in the bathtub. That really freaked me out as a little kid. I was like, what is that? Because
a lot of pushing. They were pushing him around in bed.
Yeah, that freaked me out too. It's like, that's wrong. You can't do that. It's like he's out in public naked, and this is even before streaking. And so I'm like, no, And so the show freaked me out, so I couldn't watch it for years.
Oh, that's so funny. I never heard that story.
Yeah, so I mean, it's like,
I guess if you're a little older, all that irreverence and the fact that they're pushing a bed down a busy street, that's, oh my God, they're anti-establishment. That's cool.
Yeah, I don't know. So I, but I heard the music on the radio, but I didn't go, ooh, Monkees, I got to hear it. It just was like on the radio, just in the psyche. So, and they only played the big hits. So you'd hear I'm a Believer, Daydream Believer, and Pleasant Valley Sunday, and maybe the theme song, and Clarksville, and that's about it. And it's like, I remember getting little, I got toys once that had, Monkees prizes, and I'm going, and it's like, they're so ugly, and it's so, during the 70s, I remember when Boyce and Hart, Dolenz Jones' Boyce and Hart came out, and it's like, yeah, whatever. I remember that Mickey Dolenz record commercial they did in the early 70s, which is still kind of funny. It's on YouTube if you haven't seen it in a while. And I go, but it's like, I just thought, these guys are weird. I don't like them at all. And then what changed me on it was Nesmith when he put out Elephant Parts. And then suddenly I said, oh, well, this guy has talent. I wasn't converted over to being a Monkees fan immediately. I was like, okay, Nesmith has talent, the rest of them don't. and then slowly, it was like right after that, I'd go to the Goodwill to pick up old records because I was dirt poor all the time, so, and I wanted to get things cheap anyway. I still do it. And I was at a bookstore that I used to frequent all the time, and they'd have old records for $0.25 a piece, and they had more of the Monkees. And I said, well, what's on this? And I saw I'm a Believer, and I go, well, I know that song. And then it's like, I think I knew Steppin' Stone. And I go, well, okay, 1 or 2 tracks isn't bad. If it really sucks, I can just dump it back in the Goodwill or something like that. And then I started playing everything, and it's like, I go, this isn't bad. And so I instantly became a Monkees fan just on the music. I said, I still think their TV show sucks, but, and I don't mean 2020, I mean, this is 1981, and, but they aren't even playing it anymore, so, maybe I'll get their old albums. So I started snapping them up, and I got all of them before they even reunited, except for Changes, that was the elusive one, but I even found Present, it's like, and, so I got all the old albums, and I said, oh, I adore them, which is why I wrote the book with Michael Ventrella, because I adored the music, and, when the MTV thing happened, I didn't get MTV then, so I didn't watch any of the shows on there. And it was years, I think it wasn't until the 90s. I think I even had seen Head by that point. In fact, when I saw Head the first time, I said, well, I like this. I don't like their TV show, but I like this. I was like a really ass-backwards Monkees fan.
Wow, you sure were.
And then, then I started getting into the TV shows later, and I still say, and now I'm like, yeah, I don't know if you listen to that Zilch podcast. You probably do. It's all of us do.
I do.
Yeah. Yep. And so I listened to them backwards, strangely enough, just because it was more convenient to listen to them that way. And the earliest episodes are talking about getting the whole series on Blu-ray, which I managed to get the whole series on DVD. And now I'm like, I want the thing on Blu-ray, and it's not out. Now I like the show, and I'm like, argh. Thanks to the Zilch mod.
How do you play them backwards? You record them on vinyl?
No. Not literally backwards. Not Turn Me On, Dead Man backwards. No. I mean, show 54, show 53, show 52, show...
I know.
No. Yes, it was Turn Me On, Dead Man, the whole time.
Turn Me On, Dead Man.
I don't know. I don't know my point of making my confessional about the Monkees, but I mean that's literally how I came to the Monkees. But Beatles story is an interesting one too, and I tell that in my Beatles book. It was because of Monty Python. I was already a Python fan, and I knew of the Beatles. I knew some of their things and everything, but I wasn't like a fan where it's like, okay, I have all the records and da. And then Eric Idle appeared on Saturday Night Live, and he sang "Here Comes the Sun" in this obnoxious way. It's on DVD now, where he goes, "Here comes the sun, here comes the sun," and I say it's all right. And then the running gag was, "This is so great. Let's save it for the end of the show," And of course he plays it on the closing credits, and they cut him off, and that's the joke. And I said, "What's the real song sound like?" To my parents. And they go, "Well, we got the album. It's called Abbey Road. It shows them walking across the street on the cover. You can listen to the real song." And I go, "Oh, okay." And so I go over there and I plop it down. And at first I go, "Ooh, an apple. That's kind of cute." And then I put it on "Here Comes the Sun." I go, "I've heard this." And then so I said, what else is on this album? I flip it over and they come together. "I've heard this." The next song's something. "I've heard this." And then I don't think I heard the next couple tracks, but Octopus's Garden came on. "I've heard this." And I go, "That's wrong. You can't do that." You can't have so many hits on just a regular non-greatest hits album. That's how jaded I was about the recording industry. That you couldn't have 4 hits at least on a record. But I was instantly turned on. I got Beatles books, and I started buying the other albums, and I didn't know what to buy because I wasn't sure what I had heard before. So, I generally gravitated towards the later albums if they're, because I said, well, if Sgt. Pepper stinks, at least it has a neat cover. If Magical Mystery Tour stinks, at least it has a booklet inside. And I'd buy it based on that.
Oh, boy.
I skipped over the White Album for the longest time because it was expensive and it was just a White Album. And that's my favorite.
Yeah.
So, anyway, so there's my stories for you.
It's great memories, and it's just amazing how, certain people instantly hooked, others discovered it different ways.
Yeah.
Some through siblings.
Yeah.
And it just, as long as the music lives, that's the most important thing. The visuals could be forgotten. We did a drive-in movie this past Saturday night in a local town in Connecticut, and we showed A Hard Day's Night, and it sold out, and it was just, I'd seen it 1,000 times, but seeing it on a big screen with amazing sound and watching my kids pointing out, it was a great experience. And, to me, movies, it wouldn't matter. If there was no TV show, it wouldn't matter, because it's all about, eventually, or bottom line, it's all about the music. People would interview me, "Why the Beatles? Why are you doing conventions and tours in a magazine, blah, blah?" And I would say, "Oh, it's the 3 M's. That was my pat standard answer. It's the 3 M's. It's the memories, the nostalgia factor for people who lived through it or might have, had memories of it through older parents or siblings or whatever. The magic, which is the X factor, what you can't put your finger on, but it's magical for you, for whatever reason. Right. For the Beatles or the Monkees, I think it was personality. I think that was the X factor. There was humor there. There was, something that transcended above everything else. But then the third M was the most important, was the music. It's the above all, it's the end all, and, when all is said and done, when civilization's over, there's only whatever you have left. If people can still sing, they're going to sing Beatles songs or hopefully Monkey songs. Right. And so, no riffs that have no choruses and have no hooks and have no substance that are coming out today. It's forgotten. It's wasteland. But all that great music of our youth were the most singable and the most happy, and they all had great pop hooks.
Yeah. And it's funny, you'd think, it would just be generally people in their 50s, 60s, and 70s like this. Younger folks, they don't want to see or hear this, and it's like, no, you find little kids, they're like, yeah, that's not for me. And it's like, how do they like this? I mean, the man's 80 years old, why would they like this, And it's like...
Yeah, that's the obvious choice, though, right? Because Yellow Submarine it's so cartoonish, and it's such a great kid's song that, when my kids were growing up, I did, first I started with a non-Beatles disc and then a Beatles disc, and the non-Beatles disc was like Puff the Magic Dragon and Chewy Chewy and Archie, Sugar Sugar, Yummy Yummy. It was bubblegum music and stuff that I knew they would like, easy to sing along to. And then the first Beatles album I put together was especially for them, and it had Yellow Sub and Octopus's Garden, but Please Mr. Postman and All Together Now, things that I thought were kid-friendly.
Yeah. And
they got past that so quickly, and they were on to, Bungalow Bill, and they were on to really, great
Revolution
stuff.
number 9, man. Come on, Dad.
I kept that from them. They got mad at me for not teaching them, my name, look up my number.
Hey,
and they
Dad,
loved that one.
you become naked, Dad. No, what?
Become naked. That scared me the first time I heard it. I played it alone, and it was just the voices, and it was scary to me.
Yeah.
And nothing scared me, growing up. That scared me.
I've said in recent times, I don't think I've written it down anywhere, but I've kind of concluded that the White Album is truly a concept album, unlike Sgt. Pepper. Yeah. Well, Sgt. Pepper is kind of a constructed one, but if you look at the White Album, it's like it starts out, kind of bombastically, and then it kind of ventures into like the animals, animal characters and everything. It's like it's going on with what's going on in society, and then then a war breaks out, and that's Revolution number 9, or at least the fourth side, and then finally everything gets peaceful, and you have, that's it, good night. It's kind of like the lifespan of a person or a society or something. I don't know, and I don't think that was their intention at all, but
Right.
And this is, of course, after listening to it 1,000 times. It's not like I came up with it the first time I heard it, And
I always wonder how much I really absorbed listening to it, and grasping things at the time, because it was a revelation to me later on that Ringo sang Good Night. Yeah. I just assumed, it's so pretty, it's got to be, Paul. And then to understand, wait, it's not Paul? It's Ringo? Of course it's Ringo, of course. Yeah. And, I just, stuff like that would always, even now I try to find stuff that I never hear in the stuff, like a little cling that I didn't hear that, or a little mistake, or a vocal over a vocal. It feels so right. What's the next word?
And
Hold Me Tight.
So.
Is it? Is it really, Mark? Or is it and? Or is it now? It feels so right now, hold me tight. It feels so right, and it feels so right. So you'll listen carefully, and you hear different vocals doing different things on different tracks of that.
Yeah.
So I love throwing that out, because that's one of those things that, whoa, I only discovered that, maybe 10 years ago. So
for me, I couldn't. In my earliest days of listening to the Beatles, I couldn't tell Paul's and George's voice apart.
Wow, that's interesting. Yeah, my kids always had trouble with those two also.
And then what changed it for me is when I listened to Do You Want to Know a Secret? And I go, that's George, because he says ear funny.
Wow.
He goes, yeah. And I go, Paul doesn't, because Paul tries to sound more American than George was at the time, and it's like, and then later it was like, whoever wrote it probably sang it, and stuff like that, and it's like, okay, and now I have no problem telling it at all, but, I remember in my earliest days, I was like, who's singing this? And it's like, and I wouldn't look at who wrote it, I just was like, trying to figure out who sang it. And I thought Paul sang everything, even the Lennon stuff. It was just kind of a psychological thing, It's like Paul's the most famous one, so he's obviously the singer, It's like.
That's funny. That's great.
Now, did you buy all the records as they came out, or how, on both groups, on Monkees and Beatles?
I did. I have one little funny anecdote about that. Is I lived in the Bronx, and we'd either go to Alexander's or Corvettes, which were like Macy's or Kohl's nowadays, I guess, Caldor, Bradley's, those type of places. And we would go, and Mom would say, sure, for a holiday or your birthday, let's wait and we'll get it for you. Or let's wait until it's on sale. Because it's probably normally $3.79. And when they had it on sale, it would probably be $1.99. But anyway, I remember going to one of those places. I want to say it was Corvettes, but it might have been Alexander's. And we went to the record department and looked around, and the only album I was missing was their third album, Something New. And up at that time, I think Mystery Tour had just come out. And so we go to the head of the department, you call somebody over to a section, and they had record sections in these department stores.
Right.
And my mom said, he'd like to buy Something New by the Beatles. And they handed Magical Mystery Tour. I said, no, I want Something New. And they go, this is Something New, sir, or son, or kid, or Brad, or Punk. And I'm saying, Ma, it says I want the album Something New. And she's yelling at me, well, they're telling you this is what's new. I go, I don't want the newest album, I want that. And it was like an Abbott and Costello, who was on first, going back and forth. And they got the manager of the store to come over. And he said, we'll check our inventory. And he comes out with one sealed Capitol, Something New, Beatles 65. He came out with 3 albums, and sure enough, Something New was in there.
Yep.
And they go, yeah, this is on sale along with the Magical Mystery Tour one. So she bought them both. And that was my funniest, because I think I had been up to date with getting albums as they came out, except for some reason maybe I got A Hard Day's Night in place of Something New or something. So that was the only one I had got in time. But yeah, I got Monkees straight up through Changes and Present and all the Cold Gems Monkey albums. It was religiously I would get Beatles, Monkees, and for some reason Gary Puckett and the Union Gap. Those were the 3 I never missed an album on.
So you weren't a Stones fan per se, or did you get their stuff too?
Was it who?
A Stones fan. You weren't the Rolling Stones fan too.
No. And I remembered, listening and loving Satisfaction on Jukebox, but for some reason they were always the antithesis of the Beatles to me. The Beatles were, the good guys.
Because I noticed you haven't mentioned them at all, so that's why I was kind of curious.
I didn't mention them at all, and I respect them.
Yeah.
Mark, I love them. I do now.
Yeah.
I did a Rolling Stones weekend in Wildwood, New Jersey one weekend.
Yeah.
I did 2 Rolling Stone tours where Rolling Stone fans, we went to all the sites in England. I was in the movie, believe it or not, the Martin Scorsese movie, Shine a Light. I'm an extra in it. And if you watch it to the end, when they get off the stage at the Beacon, I'm in the scene where I put a robe on Ron Wood as he walks away.
Okay.
So yeah, I am a Stones fan. It took me many years though to appreciate them.
You're kind of like me with the Monkees, but with the Stones.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, I became the Stones fan like right away. As soon as I became a Beatles fan, I was like, who else is from the 60s is still around? I go, the Rolling Stones. I became a fan of them. The Kinks. I found out about The Who, and it's like, these guys are still around, unlike those stupid Beatles that broke up.
Right. I'll give you my best Stone story real quick.
Okay.
It was a night I was homesick. I remember I was really, really, I didn't want to leave the bed, and I had tickets to see Ringo Starr in New York somewhere, Bethel Woods. I don't remember where it was. Yeah. And I was, how sick I was not going to see Ringo. And I got a call from a Connecticut promoter. He is like the Bill Graham presents of Connecticut, Jim Copland. Jim calls and says, Charles, I need you to meet me at Toad's place at 6:45. This is 6 o'clock. I've just got my pajamas. I've just got in bed. I've just taken my aspirin. No way am I leaving. He goes, Charles, you are. I don't care if you're on your deathbed. You're meeting me at 6:45.
Oh, jeez.
I go, Dad, I can't. What's this about? And now I think he felt that he was a friend, but I think he felt he owed me a favor because he was trying to get Paul McCartney to play the Yale Bowl. The town selectmen didn't want him. We met, we had fights, blah, blah, blah. I stood up. I supported him. I brought Beatle fans there to try to make it happen. It never happened, but we were friends from that point on. He said, you got to be there. Well, you can probably guess. I did get out of bed. I met him there. He walked in. He goes, go to the front of the stage. There's people lined up literally for not one block, but 17 blocks, because they caught wind of the fact that the Rolling Stones were doing their only private club show as a prelude to their tour.
Right.
And so I got to see them up close, and this was the second time I saw them. The first time I was in high school, and this kid, Mark Katz, came to school, and he was this new hotshot in school. It was in high school, I think, or junior high. And he said, my dad has a president's box at Madison Square Garden. And he told all the cool kids, which was me and one other, that if I ever want to see a show there or go to see the Knicks or the Rangers, I could go with him, that he'll get me into into this president's box, which they just started having, these, fancy VIP boxes. And my friend said, oh, great, we'll all go to see the Knicks or something. And I heard that the Stones were coming. So I said, I want to come see the Stones, man. Take me to see them. And Billy Preston opened, and it was an amazing tour. And I knew most of the songs, and it was a great experience because we watched it from, the VIP lounge box. And then about a month or two later, I hear that Paul McCartney's coming to...
Oh, so you're talking 75, 76. Okay. All right.
Yeah. And then I'd never been, to concerts outside of New York, outside of Connecticut. By then, I was living in Connecticut. I said, Mark, Paul McCartney and Wings are doing their Wings Over the World concert. They're coming to New York. I gotta go with you. You gotta take me. Said, I'm sorry. I told you I would take you to one show, and you used it for the Stones. Right? So I never saw Wings during that time ever.
Oh, okay. I thought you might have bought a ticket at least. Okay.
I did it. It wasn't that guy. I was still a kid.
Oh, did you see George in '74 or no? Just got curious.
I did not.
Okay.
No.
Okay, I'm just curious.
No.
I mean, the first time I saw any of them was McCartney and Ringo, both in '89. So it's like, it was late for me. But of course they didn't tour all during the '80s for obvious reasons. So
Right.
And I almost flew to Japan to see George, and I chickened out at the last minute. I was like,
was that with me, with my group?
I was just going to go independently. No, I was just going to buy a ticket to Japan, and but I chickened out. I said, I've never been to Japan before. I'm going by myself. I'll probably get mugged or something, and so I didn't even think about your stuff or anything, and I said, he's got to tour America, because when McCartney went on tour, I flew to L.A., because I didn't think he was going to come to the San Francisco Bay Area.
Right.
Now, he eventually did, but he didn't. So I thought, man, if I don't see him in L.A., I'll never see him, and he's probably never going to tour again. He'll probably hate it.
Right.
I just had this impression because George hated his 74 tour, and Paul hadn't toured in U.S. since 76, so I said, wow, this is probably the last time I'll see him. I saw him about five times, so, anyway, but,
Yeah, with George, we were able to got in touch with the producer there, because I'd been to Japan a few times.
Yeah.
Had a Japanese girlfriend, which was great. I had managed a band that toured Japan, and then I brought over some American record dealers for an international record convention. So I'd been to Japan a bunch of times, and I was really tight with, all the Beatle fan clubs there, the Beatles Museum, the promoters. I was still doing Good Day Sunshine, still doing conventions. That's hot and heavy time, don't forget, late 80s, early 90s.
Right.
And they announced George is doing these shows, 3 concerts. And I contacted the promoter, and I said, I'd like to bring over a group.
Yeah.
He goes, I don't think I can get you front row seats. I go, I don't care, get us good seats. One night we were way in the back, one night we were in the middle, one night we were close to the front. So we got to see 3 shows.
Yeah.
We got to go to there's a cavern club in Japan. We got to see the Beatles tribute bands in the cavern. We went to the Budokan where the Beatles played.
Right.
We went to the Beatles Museum. It was a 1-week Beatle tour.
Yeah.
I was only allowed to bring 40 people. It sold out quickly.
Yeah.
We did it through Good Day Sunshine. It was mostly people who had been on my regular Liverpool Beatle tours before. And Mark, I got to tell you, everyone who went on that, it was the time of their lives.
Yeah.
Obviously, they got to see George 3 times. Most of them got to meet Olivia. On the way home, you're doing this interview sitting down, right, Mark?
Yes.
on the way home, we're at the airport, and my Tomoya, my Japanese girlfriend, goes, George. She started screaming and hyperventilating. I go, are you okay? What's the matter? And I don't understand her Japanese. No, she's saying George, and she's pointing to the walkway where George and his family are coming up right next to where we're checking in at the gate.
Yeah.
And we're at Narita Airport, and George is there, and we're there, and we're taking pictures. And can we take a picture, George? Can we take a picture? He goes, well, you can take the picture, but I'm not going to stop. And he does stop. He walks like in a cartoon where you're walking in place. so his feet are doing the walking, but he's staying long enough for us to take pictures. Aww. And we're like, I'm looking around as we're checking. I'm looking around my group, and there's Eddie Veltman from Chicago, and his mouth is wide open. And he brought his wife along, and she wasn't the biggest fan. She's jumping up and down. I look at this other person, Barb Marks, and she's ready to faint. Another person, tears are just pouring from their eyes. Wow. And I'm looking around at all my people, and this is like, wow, what greater joy than to have made such a thing happen. Well, half our group went down to the VIP lounge. Mm-hmm. And half of them did whatever they did at the airport, and George was in the VIP lounge, so people got his autograph. They had took pictures. They got ticket stub signed. Now there were 3 girls on this same tour who only came because they were Clapton fans. Yeah, they loved George, but they were from LA. They were the hugest Clapton fans. Yeah. They did not get to meet Clapton on this tour, unfortunately. I did. I was backstage with. Not with George, I wish I was, but I was backstage with Clapton. He was getting a samurai sword demonstration. And I was there when that was going on. I wish we had cell phones in those days. I would have taken so many pictures. But anyway, so as fate would have it, this is the utmost serendipitous kismet Bashert moment. These 3 gals who loved Clapton, the rest of us went to New York. They were going to L.A. They were on the same plane as Clapton.
Oh, wow.
Who would believe it? So he was upstairs. They had 2 levels of the 747 or whatever flight that was going from Japan to London. And they went up there and hung out with him and got his photos and took pictures and autographs. Cool. And so that was, really amazing. So I wish you knew, and you could have joined us. And
I probably knew about it because I was a subscriber. It just didn't occur to me that, I should just do it through Rosenay's thing here. It's like, I just thought about, because I don't even know if it was sold out. You said you only had 40 seats. It may or may not have been, but I didn't even try. It didn't even occur to me. I was like, that was dumb. Because, I didn't go to concerts like that. It's like, for me, it's like, I was living in the Bay Area, it's like, the Who are going to be at the Oakland Coliseum. All right, buy a ticket and go. It's like, I don't think about it, it's like, and suddenly I'm like buying tickets to LA, which was a chore, but I saw it and I liked that. I'm glad I did that show in retrospect because Stevie Wonder came on stage and he and McCartney sang Ebony and Ivory as an encore, so that was cool. And then, but the George Harrison thing, I was like, my fingers are touching this close to doing it, and I just chickened out at the last minute. I said he's got to tour L.A. after this. Not L.A. United States after this, because he'll enjoy the tour. He's not hoarse, and he put out a good album, and he's got to want to do it. And I think he only did like a show in England after that, or maybe one other.
One show at Royal Albert Hall.
Yeah, something like that. I was like,
we thought so too. We thought he'd come to the States, just like we never thought McCartney would ever tour. Yeah. And then in '89, he finally tours, and we had to fly out to Manchester. We brought a group. That's when the first time I ever met him. We brought it out to the NEC in Manchester, thinking that he would never tour again, and we had to fly out to England to see him. Right. And then when he toured the States, we gotta go because he may never tour again. Yeah. You never know. You never know. If someone loves their band, or there's a band, of that kind of ilk. I only saw the Who. A friend of mine, Vinny from New York, got tickets to see them at. They did a private show at Mohegan Sun Casino, which is about an hour from me here in Connecticut. Yeah. And for some reason, I just never saw the Who. One of those things. And you know how Facebook you put a list sometimes, I've seen these 15 bands, which do you think I haven't seen?
Yeah,
and if I would put the Who on there, everyone would never guess it. They would think, of course, he's seen McCartney, he's seen the Monkees, he's seen the Who, but I had it. And it's just one of those things. They were phenomenal. And sure, I wish I saw them with Keith Moon or John Entwistle, but they were great. And it was amazing. And it's the same reason. If you can see Mickey and Mike, go see them. This is history, and you don't know if you're going to ever see them in the future. If you can see an act, that's part of your youth, that's part of your life, that's the soundtrack of your life, go see them. It'll never disappoint. You'll walk out and you'll be happy you did. And if they come back again, great, you'll see them again. But if they don't, my gosh, this is your opportunity.
Well,
if I leave the show with anything that a listener should think about, it's that if they have the opportunity to see their heroes, to definitely go do it.
Yeah. Well, I did see the Monkees. I saw them in '87. I figured '86 was chaos, and so I didn't want to for some dumb reason. And then in '87, I saw them with Weird Al as the opening act, and I've seen Weird Al many times since, and I've seen the Monkees many times since. But I saw the Mickey, Davey, Peter version 3 times, I think, and didn't see him on the last go-round in 2011, which I kind of regret. But strangely enough, on 2012, I saw every Monkey separately.
Oh, wow.
Because I went to the autograph show in L.A., and that was the one where Davy Jones was there 2 weeks before he passed away. And I've said this story many times. I said, man, if you had a bet going on of who would die in this room at the end of the month, I could tell you nobody would bet on Davy Jones. Because they had Martin Landau, who was 88 or something at the time, in very bad health. They had Carla Lemley, who was 105. And they both outlived Davy by a couple years, I think. And it's
such a shock. He was in great shape.
Yeah, he was there, and I got his autograph. I talked to him. I took some pictures. Blah blah blah. And it's like. And, I didn't think, it didn't even occur to me, this will be the last time I see him, ever, It's like, and then 2 weeks later he's gone. And then they did another autograph show, and this time it was Mickey. I'd met Mickey before, but, I was in, like what you're saying, don't turn down an opportunity. So we went back, and, I saw Mickey, and then I saw Mickey, Davey, and Mickey, Peter, and Mike in the fall, which I never thought would happen.
Never thought that would happen, right.
And so I saw them, and then Peter did a quickie solo tour. We went to see him, and then Mike did a solo tour, and we went to see him. So in 2012, 2013, in that 1 year time frame, I saw all of them together or separately, in some configuration, and so I'm like, wow.
So I'll throw 2 Davy stories at you.
All right.
The one I mentioned earlier is the utmost, because having him propose on my behalf to my wife was unbelievable.
Right.
But so we've been friends for a few years, and when he I'm losing it. We played softball and a few things. Mm-hmm. So he was touring. And doing shows, and he was doing conventions, and he was all over. But he hadn't been playing a while, except solo shows. And Jerry Renino was the guy who was his music director, and we were friends as well. And I thought, I'm having a Beatles convention, and is this crazy to have Davy at a Beatles convention? And this event was really special. We had a lot of the people from the BBC. Brian Matthews, Bernie Andrews, Shirley Jones, all the people who were either the hosts or the producers or the backstage people of all the BBC Beatles stuff. And that was great for a purist. But I didn't have that one person, that one name that would attract a general public. I thought, let me go out on a limb. Let me get Davey. They just done the commercial with Ringo,
the
Pizza Hut.
Yeah.
The Monkees. So there's that tie-in. There's the tie-in. I felt in those days you had to have a tie-in. And I thought, okay, well, the other tie-in is, of course, Davey's on the Ed Sullivan Show, the first Ed Sullivan Show. My God, this is a great connection. So we book him. We book him to do a concert at my convention. We book him to do the interview and to do a signing. So early in the day he does the signing. And my gosh, that he signs for hours. He's supposed to do it for 1 hour, and he stayed for 4 hours. He was unbelievable. And then he does the interview, and Fred Velez, famous monkey friend of mine, I bring in Fred to do the interview with Davey. I bring him on stage. We're supposed to show the Ed Sullivan appearance, but someone steals the video. so we panic, and we show the Pizza Hut commercial as the intro. And Davey does the most rockin' set of, monkey stuff, his stuff, and he throws in a great Beatles medley right in the middle.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And I thought, that was genius, number one. Number two, I didn't know he knew this stuff, so it was great. Come to find out, big Beatles fan. Yeah. Every chance he'd get, he would sing Beatles stuff. But he validated me having him as a guest at a convention. And he was great, and everyone loved him. And a few years after that, he played a show with it was either him and Mickey, or Mickey and Peter. I just want to say him and Mickey, but I don't remember. It was at a theater, and they walked through the aisle at the end, and you meet and greet. You never got an autograph. You didn't get to take pictures. You just quick shake hands. Yeah. And they walked through, and they shook my hand, and Mickey, blah, blah, and they went to and I look at my friend. I go, I guess he doesn't remember me. I should have said, don't you remember me? I'm Charles Rosenay. I should have said that, I'm thinking. And he stops. He's on his way to the green room. He stops, and he turns around, and he goes, Rosenay. I look up. I heard your mom is sick. Is everything all right? You could have picked me off the floor. That was Davey. It would click. It would click. And he loved his fans, and he was so great with fans. And for the fact that, I consider him a friend, and I thought he forgot me. I thought I was so disappointed, and I wasn't going to say my name because don't you remember me, Davey? I'm Charles. Mickey remembered, Peter remembered, and he just kind of walked by, and he was in his own, and he stopped in his tracks and said that. And that was just, from then on, we had just great relationships, and brings back just wonderful memories.
Cool. Seems like everybody has good memories with them. It's like, is there a bad monkey story out there? It's like, Mike was a dick. Not just kidding.
You'll get some where Peter, so years later, Peter was a guest at my Beatles Expo. I think it was 2009 or 2010. And I called him and said, I want you to come. He goes, Charles. It was one of those, Charles, because he used to, whenever I asked him to do something, he would do. He was great about that.
Yeah, I can hear him doing that, saying that.
And he said, what I got to do with Beatles? Okay, I'm sure you'll think of something. And of course, there was every possible connection. And he came, and you talk about great guests. We also had Spanky McFarlane from... She was Mamas and the Papas and Spank in Our Gang. Yeah. We had a bunch of Gene Cornish from the Rascals, Denny Lane. We just happened to have called it Beat Expo, so I didn't pigeon myself into a Beatles convention. But it was, a lot of my friends came who were rockers, and they came and they jammed. And Peter just jumped on the stage. Couldn't wait to play with the Beatles band. Couldn't wait to play with Spanky. Did his own set of music that the Beatles band backed him up. He was a great guest. So for me, I'll heaven and earth, I would go for all the things he did for me. Prior to the convention, we went on TV stations, and he helped me promote. He would come as a guest to the TV things, and him and I would do these TV bits to promote the convention. So God bless him. But a few times at that, he wasn't paying attention, or was eating, and someone took a picture, and he would give him a dirty look, like, you couldn't ask me, you couldn't wait. Yeah. So he would, once in a while, he would be a snip. He would find, that someone got him at the wrong, like he finished signing autographs, going up to the elevator, someone said, can I get an autograph? And he would say, well, you just had 2 hours to do that downstairs. Yeah. You'd get that once in a blue moon from him. Yeah. But you're right. In general, they were, more than any other act, they were amazing with their fans. Yeah. And to this day, Mickey and Mike, with the monkey meet and greets through Jody Ritson and all that, it's still the case. They're still available.
The worst you could say about Michael Nesmith over the years, and it's not the way now, is just he was kind of aloof. But I think he was aloof. I think for Michael Nesmith, he never understood it until probably the last 10 years. I think
a combination of after he got sick.
Yeah.
or after he got on the stage again with the guys.
Yeah.
You know, to this day, I don't know if it was a conflict, because we know he admits that him and Peter did not get along.
Yeah.
They didn't see eye to eye. They didn't consider themselves brothers, but not best friends.
Yeah.
Whereas Mickey and Davy, they had their differences, but they're always best friends. You know, if you cut any of the Peter, Mickey, or Davy, they would bleed monkey blood. I always say, you know, Derek Jeter, he bleeds Yankee pinstripes.
Right.
Those three monkeys, and I never would say that about Mike. He resisted touring. Did he resist touring? This is a hypothetical, a theoretical. It's not a real question. You can answer. I can't answer.
Yeah.
Because of Davy.
Yeah.
Was he did not want to share a stage with Davy? I don't know. But when Davy passed, all of a sudden he's a monkey again.
Yeah.
Great, thank God, because he carried the torch. You know, at first I was upset at that. You know, when all those years they could have toured the four of them, and Mike was the holdout. It bothered me for many years, and he seemed aloof. You used the perfect word. But he changed, and he's such a beautiful. He's like your uncle now. Yeah. And I met him, and I said, "Can I hug you, please?" He said, "Of course, of course."
Well, the positive thing I could say about Michael pre Davy's death is that I think he gave it a good. What's the word? If you give something a college try or something, what's the cliche? You know, it's like, you know. They got together in the 90s, they did an album, they did a tour in England, and then, you know, they did a TV special. So, at least they, you know, he said, I'll try, you know, and he made the amends that way. Now, maybe that was the seed that was like, oh, I can't work with this person ever again. We'll never know. You know, he'll never admit to that, you know, but it's like, you know, I at least say, at least Nesmith was game to show up, because he's not like who's John Fogerty, you know, who will never like be in the same room with the other guys of Creedence or something that, you know. It's like you know, you have to give it that to Nesmith, and Nesmith was, you know, busy with PBS and busy with, you know, Pacific Arts Video and all the other stuff that he was doing, probably Liquid Paper Corporation for a while there before it was sold.
Yes,
you know,
exactly.
So, you know, he was actually legitimately busy for years. He was a working man, you know, in his 40s and 50s and stuff, like, you know, I am now.
Agreed,
you know, so now he's in his 70s, he can kick back and relax. It sucks that two of his bandmates had to pass away during that period of time, but, you know, it's like... And, you know, I would never expect them to get along 100% of the time anyway, because, you know, the way they were formed anyway, it's like they wanted a guy that was from Texas, a country guy like him, and then they wanted a guy that was like Northeast Greenwich Village type person, and that's when they got Peter, and then they, you know, an English guy, and that's why they got Davy, and an LA guy, and that's how they got Dolenz, and it's like, it's amazing that they got along at all, you know?
You know what? It was magical. Maybe not Beatles magical, because those were aligned by the stars, and here the stars were aligned by the producers. I never use that line, but it makes sense. But you know, they're both tremendous scenarios.
And it's also amazing to me. You know, it's like, you know, in those early '80s years. Will the Monkees ever get back together? Will they do a McDonald's commercial? They're not worth. You know, and no one could have predicted that they would have gotten together. What? How many times since '86? You know,
who would have believed that?
You know, and it's like, you know, that they need to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame just for that. You know, that they outlasted, if you count all the reunion tours, most of the groups that are in there. You know?
Don't get me started, Mark. Don't get me started. You know, yes, they deserve to for all the influence they did, but Mickey's is. Can you tell me, name someone, all right, aside from Paul McCartney or John or the Beatles, tell me who has had a better pop rock vocal than Mickey in history?
Yeah, I can't think of anybody.
Very hard.
People say
Very hard.
They might say Robert Plant, but you know, it's like, That's
not pop rock.
Yeah.
That's rock. That's rock.
Yeah.
You know,
okay.
Is
pop
it
rock.
Elvis? Is it Jay Black? I mean, there's Johnny Maestro. Prior to him, there's plenty of those beautiful vocalists, crooners. Mickey should be in because of his voice.
Yes.
Mike Nesmith, if you listen to every one of those Monkey albums, you're going to hear stuff that it's Poco.
Yeah.
It's the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band.
Yeah.
It's country rock at its best. I didn't realize listening to Tapioca Tundra, or What Am I Doing Hanging Around, that those are even country songs.
Yeah.
To me, it's rock and roll. It's pop.
Right.
He should be in there as a pioneer, not of videos.
Yeah.
Of course, that too,
Yeah.
but of pop rock. Such an influence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I always get mad.
It's a shame.
Did you watch the Ken Burns country music thing?
I did not.
Okay. No mention whatsoever, but it's Graham Parsons this, Graham Parsons that. And I'm not going to say that Parsons or Bob Dylan or anybody else who ventured into that, is illegitimate. But, it's like, if you're going to mention somebody, mention everybody. It's like as influences and stuff like that. But
I didn't, but they're definitely remiss in not having mentioned him. Yeah, I go crazy when I hear the whole rock and roll
they did
thing.
a lot of coverage of Johnny Cash on that series, and it's like, did they show the clip of them with him with the Monkees? No, but they did show him with Dylan, of course. It's like, But
well, I can't put down the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. If I can end with this,
okay,
because I'm starting to lose my voice.
Yeah, we should go.
And I get excited. When I get excited, my voice changes, and I start talking in a different way. And you got me so excited at so many parts of this chat.
Oh no!
That, anyway, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is opening. I have a friend there, Terry, all these people, and I get kind of a call saying, hey, we're doing a video for the opening of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. We've got a Creedence fan, we got a Springsteen fan, a Grateful Dead fan. We want you to represent all the Beatle fans. Can you submit something? Okay, so I do a demo. Then they say, okay, we want you to come into a studio and do this professionally. And I put on my John Lennon, specs. I put on a Sgt. Pepper outfit. I got my hair perfect. I go about how the Beatles have affected me, what they've done in my life. I even mention that there's a 8mm silent film of me, 5 years old, whatever, with a ukulele, with a Beatles wig, going crazy. And they love it. And they say, okay, we're going to show it in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And they asked me to send them the film, and I couldn't find the film, and I got it to them late, so it never made the cut. But when the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame opened, for I don't know how many years, 3, 5 years, whatever, there was a video display on the rock and roll fans of the world, and I was in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as the Beatles guy. And the funny story is Jimmy Poe, who was the George Harrison in the L.A. Beatlemania, and then he was in the band 1964. Now I think he's in a band called Four Lads from Liverpool. One of the best Harrisons in all of Beatle tribute bands. Went there at one point and saw the video and was trying to shoot it on his phone, and he got thrown out by security because he wanted to get the footage of me at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame to show me, because he didn't think I knew about it. So that's one of the greatest stories of being in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as a Beatles fan. I mean, what could be better than that? That's
cool. All right. Well, to save your voice, and you've given me great stuff here, the last question I usually ask is, how can people get in touch with you? And you can plug anything you want, websites, your email, a tour, whatever you're doing. Sure.
So the Beatle tours still go on. We'll be back next year. We skipped this year because of the pandemic. LiverpoolTours.com. Again, www.liverpooltours.com. Or on Facebook, Liverpool Tours. But I'm really proud that after all these years, I'm putting out a book. As you know, because we have the same publisher, I think. Right. But it's not a Beatles book, shockingly to people. And it's not a Monkees book, and it's not a book of of my life story. It's a book of 100 celebrities gave me their top 10 favorite horror lists. So it's the book of top 10 horror lists. And in fact, if you're a Beatles fan or a Monkees fan, you're going to want it. Because people like Mickey contributed to it, Bobby Hart, Christian Nesmith all gave me their lists. Pete Best, Tony Bramwell, John Lennon's sister, a lot of people from the Beatles world gave me their lists. So it's really great, amazing pop culture people, actors like Ed Asner and Ruth Buzzy and Karen Black, rock stars like Gary Puckett, Little Anthony, Elliot Easton and Greg Hawkes of the Cars. I can go on and on. Jane Wheatland from the Go-Go's got their top 10 horror lists in this book, and it's the book of top10horrorlists.com. Just as it's worded, you can find it on Facebook or the website bookoftop10horrorlists.com. Okay. But the best way is to just call me. The number here is 203-795-4737. You can run that on the invisible audio scroll under us. 203-795-4737 if people want to call about any of the tours, any of the festivals. If they want to talk horror, Beatles, Monkees, haunted houses, anything like that, I'm on the other end, always willing to chat with friends.
And is there another Monkey show soon, or no?
I don't think so. I think, God willing, Mickey and Mike will be here for a very long time, and we won't have to do a memorial convention. But I have no plans to do anything monkey-wise, unless we throw together, a Monkees night and have a band playing, right. But not a convention per se, no.
That's okay. Fair enough. Well, it's been a pleasure talking with you today, Charles. And
same here.
When the book comes out, we can have you back, and we can talk horror or whatever you want to talk about. So.
I would love that. That'd be great.
All right. Well, I thank you very much.
Mark, thank you so much for inviting me and asking great questions and letting me ramble on.
All right. Have a great day. Thank you for listening, and thank you, Charles Rosenay, for being my special guest. Episode number 88 will be coming soon. If you would like to comment and or be a guest on this podcast, please drop me a line at funideas.mark@gmail.com. Become a Patreon of Mark Arnold and Fun Ideas Productions. If everyone listening just contributed $1 a month, that would be a tremendous help in continuing the production of my books and this podcast. Also, subscribe to my YouTube channel. The opening and closing music for the Fun Ideas podcast is provided courtesy of Andrew the Slow Poisoner Goldfarb and is used with permission. This has been the Fun Ideas podcast. This is Mark Arnold speaking. This episode is copyright 2020, Fun Ideas Productions. Thank you, and good night.
Headed home to a cardboard hut with duct tape doors. At the price I'm paying, be glad it isn't yours. Now get up, Crab Mountain, get up. 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 That mountain of crab. And don't fall back. Don't fall back.